here we are on the other side of that crazy week we told you guys about, transplant evaluation week. So here's where we're at. We're moving to North Carolina.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So you gotta breathe, 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 breathe. Let it go and let it be.
Good morning.
We've been, you know, kind of mulling over all that we learned during that week, and we recapped it each day, and we put up those, I guess, 5 or 6 videos. But we also know that some people missed some of the videos and not the others, so we wanted to have one place where we kind of sum it all up for you guys.
Recap our thoughts, because I know that we came out of that week with a lot of information, and we shared a lot of the summaries, as Mary said, from each day, but there were also like thoughts that were threaded throughout the week that I feel like we need to kind of tie together. And really, we wanted to wait to make this video. This is now a few weeks after Mary was at Duke for transplant evaluation, and we wanted to kind of let all the information settle, process it, and
we had also been waiting for word back from Duke for a couple of different things.
So here we are.
Here we are.
We received so much information. Here's just 2 of the, I think we have multiple folders of paperwork, and we described this to a lot of our friends like we were drinking from a fire hose the entire
so much information,
the entire week. And I think the biggest thing that walking out of that week, probably the biggest thing, was the realization that Mary does indeed need a liver if and when she gets a lung transplant.
Yeah. But I will also say, going into that week, in each of those meetings with the doctors, we said, you know, our hope is that eventually, soon, this new Vertex medication will come out, and I will have an opportunity to try that. And all of the doctors were totally on the same page and agreed, yes, that is our hope. That medication, 1, that you'll have an opportunity to try it, 2, that it'll work, and 3, that it will delay transplant. If you're just clicking on this video and this is all new to you, lung transplant, and in my case lung and liver transplant, is not a cure for cystic fibrosis. We've done a few videos that you can watch that kind of tells a little bit more about that. That being said, it is a very last resort option, and so delaying it as long as healthily possible is ideal.
Yeah, and so a lot of the week and following transplant evaluation week was us really taking in all this information, them taking in all the information about Mary's body, and then really saying, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
We were all on the same page that this wasn't an evaluation in order to be immediately listed for a transplant. That this was us getting the information we need to make decisions about our life and to really think about the future of Mary's healthcare. And
also, like we said, learn if I will need a lung transplant or a lung and liver transplant. Which the reality that we learned about lung and liver transplant is it is an extremely rare but also riskier procedure is not the right word. Surgery, life event, whatever you want to call it. So I think, you know, there's about a million things that we could tell you guys that's been like going through our minds, but I think the bottom line that where we're at right now is our hope is still to try this new medication, which we don't have a timeline of when that will be available for me to try. There's no, we don't know. So for now, the goal is to continue doing all that we can for my body. keep on trudging on with normal CF life, eventually start that medication, if that's an option for me. There are still questions about, because I have liver disease and all of that. But we're kind of moving forward in our minds thinking that this will be an option. And if I'm able to get on that medication and it delays transplant for as long as it possibly can, awesome, great. That is great. And I think for me personally, like mental health wise, doing the transplant week and now processing the transplant week has been more like logistics and less emotional. Oh, there were plenty of tears, let me tell you. But it's been kind of logistics because we do have that step in the process that we're waiting for, that medication. So for me, I think it's been like, we're waiting for the Vertex med, we're processing, we're talking with Duke about logistics of future transplant life, we're making plans, this is what we're doing. It's been kind of like that for me.
Yeah, and I think the reality that we talked with Duke about and Mary and I have continued to process is we don't know. We did get to know a lot of things during that week, but we don't know how Mary's body's going to react to this medication, whether it's going to improve her lungs. We don't know if her body could decline, like what the bacterial infections are going to do in the course of the next month, year, 2 years, 3 years. We just don't know those things, and because of that, it makes the transplant conversation more real, because we have to recognize that her lungs will progress eventually, and may come to that point where we need to really take that next step of treatment.
One of the interesting conversations we had actually on Monday with the post-transplant lung pulmonologist, we were talking with him about, of course, he was saying, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what your body's gonna do, your rate of decline, when the need will arise. But basically, what we were all kind of acknowledging and agreeing is we know that CF is progressive. We see the progression in the last year, and because of that, we're going to make an informed decision that we need to be in proximity to Duke for future treatment. And what we've come to realize is present and future treatment. So here's where we're at. We're moving to North Carolina.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's and we want people to understand why we are moving. One is this new realization that Mary will need liver and lung transplant.
Yeah.
And because of that, there's only a handful of hospitals that have an expertise in doing that surgery. And it's a surgery of doing both organs at once. Right. And Duke's at the top of the list in terms of experience. And as if you've watched the transplant evaluation week, we loved so much of the team, and there were hard parts about the hospital and all of that, but at the end of the day, and after Mary and I came back from that trip and processed, we said, if and when the time comes, that's where we want to be for transplant.
Yeah. At this point, we feel, when my CF team here recommended Duke as a possible option for my transplant, we decided to go there for our first steps, and everything has felt very right about it. Like Peter said, there's going to be hard things at any hospital you go to. There is no perfect system, but the people were really top-notch, and as the week progressed, we felt more and more confident that this feels like the right fit for us. They are, like Peter said, they have the most experience with liver and lung transplants. although that's still a small number at 15. But they have the most experience, and they are confident in their abilities, although they also acknowledge the risks. We also acknowledge the risks, but we appreciate their confidence. And so here's where we're at. Pre-transplant, I am going to be followed. Well, I guess I should pause for 1 second. 1 week after my transplant evaluation, the transplant team had a meeting. They always discuss the transplant candidates from the week before. They talked about my case. I got a call on Tuesday, the following week, from the lung transplant coordinator, and she said, you have been accepted for future transplant when the time comes with Duke. And then on Wednesday, I got a call from the lung, what did I say?
You said lung. And
then I got a call from the liver transplant coordinator who said the same thing.
Yeah, and so basically Duke wants to follow Mary over the course of the future, however long that might be, until we're ready, and her body's at the place where we decide that it's at the best window for doing a liver-lung transplant.
Right.
And so we want to be clear that we aren't moving there for her to be listed at Duke. We are moving there because we don't want to have to move there when we're ready to be listed at Duke. So, isn't that like how you put it?
Yeah, I mean, we're moving there knowing that transplant appears to be in my future. We don't know the timeline, and because of that, we want to make a move now-ish rather than dire emergency Mary in the ICU waiting for a transplant time, because that doesn't make sense for our family. We want to make this move, and the pulmonologist said it best. He said, if it was me, and if I could at all swing it, I'd go ahead and move. And we said, you know what, we were thinking the same thing. There's a lot. The Duke team said over and over again, it's 50% about your body and 50% about your brain. And that's totally true. And so we know that during transplant time, it's important to have a support system. And so we feel that it's wisest for us to go ahead and move and start establishing our life down in North Carolina and establishing a support system along with our family, but also locally in that community. So finding a church to go to and people that will be in our life at that point, and just start establishing our life there. And that felt, it didn't feel crazy. It felt right.
Yeah.
Like realizing that decision. What was crazy was a week and a half ago, Peter flew down to North Carolina last minute to go look at some houses, put an offer in on a house. We didn't get it, but that felt crazy. But the move itself feels right.
It feels right. We're very much at peace about it. A lot of there's hard aspects of it. We had to tell our church that we'll be leaving, and we don't have a time frame for this. It's as we said, this isn't an emergent move or anything like that. We, in the next few months, plan to transition our lives down to North Carolina. And so sharing that with our church, and really we want to help them find the next pastor and transition that, and transitioning from, this is where really we've lived, besides our little stint in Scotland, we've lived in Massachusetts for our whole married life.
Yep.
And so this is a big move for us, but in many ways we felt very much at peace because we felt like God had prepared a lot of details in our own hearts and in the logistics of all of this. And we are sad to leave Massachusetts. We're excited for life, what it's going to look like in North Carolina. Yep. And we're excited to have the information we received from transplant evaluation, and it gave us the tools we needed to make this decision. Yeah. And we knew that that was going to be part of why we were going for this full evaluation so that we can make an informed decision about our future.
Yeah. So where do we stand? My CF care for right now is still here in Massachusetts and will continue to be for the unknown but foreseeable future. Once we are transitioned completely to North Carolina, there are 2 cystic fibrosis centers that we will be in driving distance of. And so we will
decide where Mary will have her care at that point.
Then that's CF care. And then I will also be followed by, they already booked my next appointments for transplant clinic. That's pre-transplant. They said that they follow people before transplant, sometimes up to 3 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So they are fully on board with, they want to make the best decision as a team when that window is for my body to have the best chance at success with a transplant. And one of the things that we learned during this week, which is part of what made us realize moving now makes more sense, is the cardiothoracic surgeon really wanted us to realize with a liver and lung transplant, that window of opportunity is going to look a little different than a typical lung transplant. And we talked a bit more about that in this video, day 4 of transplant evaluation week. So if you want to hear more about that. But just knowing that my window is going to look a little different, being there, being followed closely, and being able to make wise decisions makes sense to live there. I will say it is, I think my biggest challenge at this point, aside from like leaving our life here and the people that we love here, that's hard. But another hard part is the CF care. As you guys know, CF care is very, at least for my body, is very constant, and I'm in contact with my CF team very frequently. And over the last 8 years of living here and being under their care, we've gotten some rhythms down, and they know my body so well, even though it's a mystery sometimes. They know what works, what doesn't work, and we've gotten things down to a rhythm. And so the thought of starting at a new CF center is so overwhelming and scary and makes me want to cry. I also feel really confident that God has been preparing my mind and my body for this over the last year. The last 2 times I was on IVs, I was able to do it all from home. That's amazing. And I'm so thankful that my blood counts were stable enough. And I was saying to Peter, like, that's amazing. Like, maybe my bone marrow is getting better and I will not need to be in the hospital as much. Okay, all of that to say, we'll get the CF care figured out. It is a huge deal to switch, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it as a team, and it is comforting that we don't have to do it right now.
Yeah.
We can figure this out over the next few months.
Yeah, and that's part of why we want to do this now, so that we can take our time. And yes, there may be the question of, we could stay in Massachusetts, and once Mary's ready to be listed or else at that point, we could move down there temporarily. And that is a logistic thing that actually a lot of people do at Duke. But for us, as we process the transplant evaluation and all the information we received, we made this decision that this is what's best for our family. And also, like, you and I have talked for many years about maybe someday we'll end up in North Carolina. Yeah. And also our job, Peter's pastoring job here in Massachusetts, obviously is location dependent. And that obviously he will be transitioning out of. But our job on YouTube isn't location dependent. And so a move is more feasible because of our job. And the weather is a little more mild as far as the cold goes. Of course, it's hot there, but there were a lot of different reasons that a move to North Carolina feels right. And so, anyway. So in summary, we're moving.
We're moving. We're moving. I don't even know. I do know we're moving. We're moving.
So thanks for watching, guys, and for being part of this crazy journey. We'll bring you along, of course.
And as always, we will see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Oh, where is he?
He looked up for the ending. Good night, Ollie boy. We'll see you tomorrow.